folks are joining. I'm so excited to see all of you. And I want to start with a tiny bit of warning. I'm getting some messages saying that my internet connection is weak. So please let me know if, as we're going, you are having a hard time hearing me, or if things are breaking up. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to do, but um, if you're having trouble catching things, at the very least, I can slow down so that we don't miss each other. And we are recording now, so officially welcome to this experiment class. This is part of some thinking and dreaming that I have been doing over the last couple of weeks, um, preparing for this journey that I'm taking to China to continue my studies in the hospital there. And I've been thinking about food a lot. It's been coming up a lot with clients, and it's always part of my own journey. And it really feels like this is a piece that I would like to express and kind of give to the world before I go into this next phase of learning with the plants and the herbs. So here we are, and the idea with this experiment today is that instead of charging you a fee for this class, or creating some big complicated enrollment process, I want to give it to you as a gift, and also to make the request that if you receive something that's valuable here today, that you will make a gift in turn. And there are two ways to do that. One possibility is, if you would like to go ahead and just make a donation directly to the organization A Well-Fed World, and I will find the link and send that to you. They do hunger relief in a way that very few, if any, other organizations are doing, with a deep awareness about this web of life and web of connection that we're going to be talking about a little bit today. And I've been so impressed by this work, and wanted to do more to support them than I could do just personally. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. It looks like my signal is a little bit better now. Um, Okay, so here we go. So thank you, Paula, for bravely kicking us off in the chat. So this platform, one of the great things about this platform is that we can communicate with each other as I'm teaching. So I opened with the question to the people who were here a little bit early, to please feel free to share if there's something specific that you were hoping to receive today, or connections that you're working on. And Paula leaned right in and just opened the vulnerability here. So thank you for doing that. And she's really saying that the inner skills have been lacking for her. And thank you for sharing that, Paula. I think that you're not alone. I'm really thinking that the inner skills is something that just isn't being taught and isn't being talked about. I think there are some teachers who've gone there. Janine Roth comes to mind. But I think that overall, we've been really focused on the material stuff, the food itself, and not on our own inner responses and the kind of the ground of our own being, and then also the web of life that allows that food to even reach our table. So that's what we're going to really go into today. And I want us to begin um, with actually a practical exploration that lays some of this foundational work for these inner skills that we're going to talk about. So, as you are able, according to where you happen to be right now, I want to invite you to perhaps close your eyes, perhaps take a couple of breaths and see if there is any tension that you can let go of in your body that is maybe a little bit more than what you really need in this moment. I feel some in my jaw and in the back of my neck. Just using an exhalation maybe to release that tension. And what I want you to notice as you're releasing any extra tension that you don't need, I want you to just start with your hands and see if you can feel the sensation of aliveness inside your own hands. You may notice that intentionally relaxing your palms helps to make it easier to feel that aliveness. It might feel like temperature. It might feel like tingling. It might feel like energy. And if you notice that you're kind of drifting away and losing focus on that sensation of aliveness, or if perhaps you haven't noticed what that sensation feels like and you're beating yourself up, that's okay. Just come back to placing all of your awareness inside of your hands, noticing what it feels like. And if this is proving to be enough of a challenge, then just stay here with the palms of the hands only. If you feel like you've got it, if you are really feeling something, start to allow your awareness to spread up your arms and maybe even as far as your shoulders. See if you can feel that aliveness sensation creeping further and further up away from your hands and toward your shoulders. And maybe, especially if you have some regular meditation or energetic practices already, maybe you're noticing that it's automatically kind of spreading into your chest and your neck, kind of filling up your heart and your torso, maybe even filling up your whole body. And if so, just allow yourself to feel all of the aliveness. And just take a couple of breaths and go ahead and let your awareness come back. and share, if you would like, anything that you noticed about doing that exercise, kind of feeling the aliveness within your body. And specifically, maybe anything that you noticed about the relationship between tension and the feeling of aliveness. If you're not in a place where you're able to type, I want you to think about the question and form the answer in your mind, even if you're not able to type it into the chat. It really will help you to deepen the learning um, if you are thinking through some of these questions a little bit more actively. Marie says, I'm not sure about the relationship between tension and aliveness, but I definitely felt energy and I could feel my pulse in my hands, which was pretty cool. Yeah, beautiful. Paula says, I find that every time I take time to do something like this, it becomes obvious how slowing down can be so beneficial. Yeah, it's great to have those reminders, isn't it? You know, we kind of know intellectually that these things are good, but it's not always easy to actually do the practice. And then when there's some space and some time created to experience it, then it becomes easier to actually move in that direction. And it's funny because that is really very much the approach that I'm wanting to take about food with this whole class. And it transitions us perfectly into a little bit more big picture conversation about the inner skills of nourishment. So, what I wanted to bring forward about tension and aliveness is going to come back a little bit later. But for now, let's just try this. So go ahead and make your hands into a really tight fist and try again that exercise that we were just doing. So make your hands into a tight fist, lots of tension, and then see if you can feel the aliveness in them. Just give me a yes or no. Can you feel the aliveness in them in the same way? And of course, your hands are still alive. Um, Give me just a Y or an N. Let me know how this is going if you give this a try. Paula says yes. Okay, cool. Marie says, I think so, but it's a different energy for sure. Yes. Yeah. For me, when I'm in the tension, what I feel is the tension. I feel effort. I feel the actual block itself. I personally don't really feel the aliveness anymore. Of course, my hands are still alive, and I feel that effort that I'm making. But I lose connection to that other piece. It's almost like I'm putting up a screen in front of a light, but it's such a dark screen that the light doesn't shine through. And it's still there, but I'm not able to perceive it. And I think that this is what happens and that this is what we do in our relationship with food when we go from kind of a state in which we're not totally happy with how we're eating or how our body feels or looks or um, the things that we're buying and feeding our families. And we jump from that place to a place of effort and like trying to do things really perfectly or well or seeing the latest plan or book or program and gorgeous photography and people with glowing skin and like, people who look like they've got it all figured out, and kind of pushing toward emulating something external. Um, and this is why I want us to strip away that effort to start with and focus on the internal parts of doing this work. So there are a couple of skills that we need to have in order to eat and eat well. And these are things that actually, when humans are living in a way that is normal, natural, and healthy, we all do quite naturally. And a healthy baby is a great role model for how to do this. So the first inner skill is about being able to identify and connect with our needs and desires. So these needs and desires, of course, if you're familiar with psychology, you know about the idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where he has kind of like a triangle or pyramid. And at the bottom are the most basic needs that we have for survival, which include, shelter and safety and food and water. And then as you go up the pyramid, once you have some of those more basic needs established, then the needs that people start to work on a little bit more intently have to do with creative expression and emotional stability and partnership and higher ideals and philanthropy, things like that. Um, Leaving aside my critiques of Maslow's hierarchy, it's really key to notice that food goes to one of those sort of most basic things that sustain life. It's also one of the most basic things that sustain culture. And it's also one of the few things that we do in modern life that gives us permission to take a break. And as we were kind of talking about in the beginning of this time together, it's not that easy to remember to take a break. So in order to be able to start shifting the relationship with food, before we even go to the food at all, we have to get in touch with our own needs and desires. And what that means to an extent is that all of the things that we do in order to numb ourselves out, in order to not feel the discomfort that comes up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when we're really tired, but still have 2 or 3 more hours of work to go, in order to not feel the anger at the partner who is not pulling their weight in helping take care of the kids, or in order to not feel the anger at the boss who has all of the power in the work situation but is not treating us fairly. In order to not feel all of these things, we shut down and we kind of put tension over top of this relationship to our true needs and desires. So what then starts to happen is that those needs and desires get twisted and they come out sideways. So I think the biggest example of this is like the 3 o'clock coffee run, right? That's like a cultural phenomenon. Um, Most people have kind of a natural lull in energy in the middle of the afternoon. And there are many cultures in the world that honor this with a practice of taking a really long lunch that includes rest time. And our culture does no such thing. And instead, what we do is we then push on our adrenal glands by fueling up with coffee and sugar and stimulating music, like things to try to pump us up to defend against that need that we have for rest that we don't know how we can actually meet. And it's a scary thing to have a need, especially when you're not sure that that need is going to get met. But the first skill is about having the courage and the self-compassion and the trust to start to actually experience our needs and desires, even if we're not sure how they're going to be met immediately. So I'm going to pause here for a second. Tell me a little bit about kind of how this is landing or resonating for you. This idea of um, really connecting with our needs and desires. How do you feel in terms of your capacity to do that, kind of on a scale of 1 to 10, like 10 being, I really can tell what I need, and 1 being, like, I really have no idea. Like, oh, Lord only knows. Paul is asking the definition. Yeah, I think that is what it is. I think it is, absolutely. Emily says, I think it depends on the situation and the time of day for me. Yeah, that makes sense. Tell me about a time when you're really good at noticing what you need, if you would be willing. It can be really helpful in general to start with, once you realize that, like, sometimes you are able to do something well, or you can do one of these skills. Start with the times when you are able to be successful, and then you can see if maybe you can replicate that success in different situations that are more challenging, or if you can change those other situations in order to make it work better. This is a really great kind of self-coaching practice to use on yourself. Paula says, I get into my head and I feel like logically I know what's best for me rather than trusting myself to really know. Yeah, the mind is so tricky, right? It's so good at convincing us that that really what we need is just to drink that big old coffee and push through, so that then we can really relax, right? Can co-opt and use all of the self-care language that we develop. Um, sometimes it's a little bit tricky to know the difference. That's where this aliveness exercise can be helpful, or for those of you um, who've participated in the Nimble Heart class in the past, or any of the exercises around feeling your heart, or where that heart appreciation practice can help, of really dropping in and sensing on a deeper level than just kind of from the mind. Emily says, when I'm well rested and well fed, and when I check in often with myself throughout the day, that's when she is best at identifying her needs and desires. Yeah, that makes sense. Marie says, I like to think I'm pretty good, but my digestive issues speak otherwise. I definitely have different situations where I'm on it, but I have the tendency to put others' needs above my own. Yes, 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 yes. Um, and oh my goodness, I feel you so much on this piece about the digestive issues. Um, I want to pause and just say a little bit about this, because I have a feeling that you're not the only one in this circle who has something like this going on. And I want to speak to the symbolic nature of what the body may be communicating to us when we are experiencing digestive issues. So, on one level, um, our needs as they relate to food have to do with very physical things, right? Like getting enough nutrients, getting enough calories, but not far too many. Getting enough pleasure from our food is a physical need that we have. Um, and being able to avoid things that will make us sick or unwell. So that includes food that is spoiled or contaminated, which most of us, most of the time, are pretty good at doing naturally. Um, and also, it means avoiding foods that will um, upset our stomachs or trigger any digestive issues that we might have, for those of us, like myself, who have a history of digestive illness. Um, so when the physical side of things is taken care of, and you're eating a diet that is meeting those physical needs, there are still times when digestive upset will happen, and it is not because you ate the wrong food. And this is something that I want to shout from the rooftops because of the amount of pain and suffering that I see happening um, as people exist on diets that I don't even know, that are so limited because they're afraid that everything is an allergen for them. And there are periods of my life where I have been there. Um, and in fact, the physical food may not at all be what's triggering the distress in the body. So this is true for digestive issues, skin issues, inflammatory issues. Lots of times we are mistaking the literal food as the irritant when in fact there's something else going on. Um, when this shows up with digestive distress, I want you to think about the metaphor of um, what the digestive system represents if we map it onto your emotional and spiritual self. So, what I mean is this: when you take in physical food, okay, there's a period of kind of smelling, tasting, accepting, chewing, working on, and then swallowing the food. This corresponds to the emotional steps of kind of like feeling something out, considering it, turning it over in your mind, passing it through your sort of your sniff test, like your bullshit detector, right? Like you would not literally eat something that was BS, but sometimes we take in emotional BS from other people or from environments that we're in or from politics or wherever. Um, so that's kind of that initial step of eating. And then once you swallow something, um, it's possible for your body to reject it by sending it back up, right? It's also possible that you take in something that you should not have taken in, and it causes pain, distress, illness, diarrhea on the way out. And this sometimes happens in our physical bodies when, in fact, we are taking in things emotionally that should never have gone kind of past that first stage of checking it out. When we take in treatment from others or emotional information or nourishment that has actually served to make us sick. And it doesn't mean all the time that someone has done something wrong to us. Sometimes that can be the case. But this can also really happen when we take on the stress of other people, or when we kind of put ourselves in between other people and their problems. And we have now taken it in, but inside of us, it has done something harmful, done something bad. We've taken in more than our systems can handle. I see this very often happening in friends, clients, people that I encounter in the world. Um, so if you are feeling confused about food and you're not, allergens and all of this kind of stuff, um, sometimes it's really worth paying attention to not only what you are eating physically, but also what are you taking in emotionally from around you. The body really does respond in these ways sometimes. It's not always literal or about the food. Okay, so Marie, you can, if you would like, let me know if that resonated or how that connects for you. Please, this is being recorded, so please don't feel obligated to share more than you're comfortable sharing. But this is a pretty safe space. It's a pretty awesome group of people who hang around Psyche and Soma. So I think you're in pretty safe space. Um, okay. So that's really the first skill, is identifying the needs. And really the way to start is simply to remind yourself, find some way of reminding yourself to check in, and even notice what it is that you need. You know, we have these great and not so great little devices now, right? That you can put reminders and little things that flash up. Why not set a reminder on your calendar or your phone, that just says, like, what do you need right now? And take a couple of breaths and see if you can identify something. And if you're able to give yourself that thing, by all means, do it. If you're not able to give yourself that thing, do not let that shut down the fact that you need it. Okay, this is so crucial. Knowing and being able to hold your needs, regardless of whether or not you know if that need can be met right now, is absolutely vital. And the only way that you will look for opportunities to get the need met, or that you will learn to develop the courage to ask someone to help you meet the need, is if you're aware of it in the first place. So let's just give this a try right now. Um, Marie, I'm seeing your comment. Yeah, most of us, most of us have swallowed some emotional things over the years. Yeah. So let's just give this a try right now, okay? No pressure. You don't have to be able to act on it. We're just going to notice it and see if we can find a need, okay? So let's just take 3 breaths. This is just giving us a second to calm down, get out of our minds. And then right into the center of yourself, right into your heart, just ask, what do I need right now? I need to stretch my hip flexors. My hips are feeling uncomfortable a little bit. And I'm not in a position to do that right at this moment. So I'm going to say to my body, I hear you, and we will do some stretching as soon as we're complete with the class. So let me know how that goes. Feel free to share any needs that came up if you would like to. Um, and what happens for you when you notice the need? Or is there a block in noticing the need? I don't know if we're going to use this, but I'm going to go ahead and actually put us into Q&A mode. So we'll have the opportunity to go voice to voice. If you would like to answer any of these questions, actually voice to voice instead of through typing, you can hit the ask a question button and you'll be able to raise your hand, and then I can call on you and we can actually speak directly to each other. Yes, beautiful, Marie. I need a nap, but I'm at work, so I'll do it later. Yes. And you you might have to take my word for this right now, but the body and the self inside are really so generous. And if you if you will be true to your word, so if I tell myself, oh, I can't stretch right now, but after the class we will, and then I don't follow through on my word, that is deeply corrosive to the relationship with myself. So in these moments, really understand that there is a sacred relationship that's happening here, and um, really keep your word to yourself as best you can. Now, if when the class ends, I find that there's some kind of emergency situation or something and I can't do it, the self will understand. But if I just neglect or if I just skip over myself time and time again, that will corrode the relationship between my conscious self and my ability to kind of move in the world and my deep self. So it's really worth keeping your word to yourself just as much as you would to anybody in the outer world. Um, and then what you can also do is you can negotiate a little bit. So if you're in a situation like Marie where you need a nap but you're at work and you can't do it now, you could ask the self, would 1 minute with, no sound, like would 1 minute sitting in the bathroom, closing our eyes and just breathing, would that help at all? I don't know if that's a good idea, but or a cup of green tea or heaven forbid even a coffee. It's not about saying that 3 p.m. coffee is wrong. It's about saying that if you don't notice the need and you just reach for something without taking that step, it can be harmful. So you can negotiate with these needs. Uh, Paula says, it seems to take me longer than I want in order to get a response from my body. So I easily give up on taking time for myself, which takes me back to thinking too much. Yeah. Um, yeah, the mind gets so impatient, right? The mind is like, if the body doesn't come up with an answer in a millisecond, the mind is like, oh, this is so inefficient. What are we doing here? This isn't going to work. And it kind of, there's actually anxiety in it. I think it's a little bit of an anxiety or kind of a panic response. Um, so what I think can be helpful is to use the image of um, a child or a cute animal or like Paula, I know you, so I know that if you were watching a toddler who was just learning how to walk, the toddler was kind of wobbling and being very unsuccessful at the goal of walking, I know how patient you would be with that little person who couldn't do the thing really quickly. And it's that same kind of generosity that we want to bring to ourselves when we're first starting to notice these needs, um, because it takes practice. It's like any skill, it takes some practice to know how to do. So I got to that hip tightness need very quickly. That was very, very fast. And I could do that because I have a habit of checking in this way, and also because I'm pretty tuned in with my body these days. I have not always been. Um, there was a time in my life when I just didn't even really know there was like anything from my neck down. It was like a little floating head. So it takes some time in the beginning, like any skill. And if that mind is really loud, you could, again, take your phone, set a timer for 60 seconds, and say, I'm going to take 60 seconds to see if I can identify if there's a need here. And if you get to the end of that 60 seconds and you haven't identified a need yet, then that's okay. You did a little practice session and it will help you to get better at this skill. Okay. All right, there's obviously so much more that we can say, but I want to move on and I want to kind of expand this now, talking from sort of the microcosm of the personal self into the macrocosm, the web of life piece that we've been talking about. Um, you're so welcome, Paula. So one side of the dysfunction has to do with not being able to know when we're hungry or when we need something else, or not being able to know what actually we need in terms of food. Another side, I strongly believe, of this relationship with um, food and nourishment being so full of angst in our culture has to do with something very different. And it has to do with the fact that whenever we are trying not to know about something, it comes at a tremendous, tremendous cost on a level that's kind of hard to describe. I wish I had thought of a specific example here um, beforehand, but I feel like this is most um, beautifully shown and explained in stories, film, television, plays, and it's such a common motif. So right now, my partner and I are watching The Americans, which is a story about a family of Russian spies living in the United States during the 1980s. And one of the things that I think is really interesting about this show, and that I think it gets really right, is the spies, they develop these relationships of trust and of kind of mutual dependence with the people who are their targets that they're trying to get information from, right? And one of the characters has a woman who he kind of romances and then ultimately marries, but of course the marriage is not real. Um, and he is using her in order to get information from the FBI because she's a secretary there. And when you watch that relationship unfold, you see the woman who is the target. You see her avoid asking the questions or pushing the issue about the thing that she really doesn't want to know, because she really wants to believe that this man does love her and that the mostly plausible but sometimes kind of odd explanations that he gives her really are true, and that this really is a wonderful thing that's happening in her life, and it really is okay. And the more and more that she does this, of course, the more that she gets herself into a situation that is far beyond what she ever bargained for, um, beyond what she realized she was doing, and yet she could have realized it if she had allowed herself to have the courage and to have the trust in herself, that she was going to be able to get her needs met in a different way. So actually, this is where there's kind of a tie-in. And the character's name in the show is Martha. And I really think that we um, collectively, and I include myself in the present day in this, I think that we all are like Martha in some way in our consumer decisions, because some little part of us knows, right? Tell me if this isn't true. If this isn't true for you, please tell me. But don't you feel like some part of you knows that when you're buying things and you see the label says made in such and such country, or you have to get tires for your car and you know that there's nothing good about, the manufacturing of rubber, but you have to be able to drive to work, or you put gasoline in your car and you know the problems with fossil fuels and global warming, and yet like you have to be able to drive because what is the other option, right? And the same thing with food, that you know, somehow you have to get dinner on the table, you have to meet your budget, um, you have to do all the other things in the day. And wouldn't it just be paralyzing if you had to stop and think about everything that was involved in how your food got to you? Um, and in this way, I think we are very much like that character who um, instead of really feeling what's happening and what we could know, we push it away and we accept the stories that the companies are all too happy to tell us about how, well, it's really okay because dot, dot, dot. You know, I'm going to pause here because I want to see if you're with me. This is a lot potentially to take in, and I don't want to give anyone digestive distress if we take in too much, because it's important to open our hearts and our eyes, but it's also important to move forward in a way that's sustainable for ourselves, as well as working toward more justice and sustainability for others. We can do both. We can absolutely lean in and do both. Thank you all for typing and listening. Yeah, okay, Kim. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, Marie was saying there's definitely a disconnect where our food comes from. I was explaining about factory meat and milk to a friend, and she basically told me to stop talking because I was upsetting her too much. It is distressing, but I think it's better to face the truth so we can do something about it. Maybe off topic, but that was my thought. Not off topic at all. That's a perfect example. So, in this situation, this is a great example um, of feeling of actually her friend Marie's friend was feeling something very intense, right? Marie's telling her something that's distressing about the food that presumably this woman has been buying, because like, isn't that what everyone buys? It's unusual, actually. It's unusual not to buy factory meat and dairy. Certainly for most of my life, that was what I did and what my family did growing up. That's what everyone did. um, and Marie is telling her about it, because she has some information. She has more information about what happens. And the friend actually says, "Stop talking. Don't tell me about this anymore. It's too upsetting." And it is upsetting. That's what I'm saying here. It is upsetting. And I think it is a false refuge, to quote Tara Brach, the Buddhist meditation teacher. It is an upsetting thing, to notice the ways in which we have been or continue to be complicit in causing harm to people, to animals, to the earth, to all of these things, all of which happens within the food system. Major, major harm to all of those three categories, as well as to ourselves. And yet, it's so painful to realize, especially when we feel like there's no other option, or if I really know what happens in order to get that packet of chicken breasts, if I really know what happens, how am I gonna I'm not going to be able to do it anymore. But if I'm not going to be able to do it anymore, how many new problems are going to be created in my personal life, and I can't hold up to it. um, and what I'm saying here is that, just like with noticing our own needs and being willing to stand in that gap of noticing the need and maybe not being able to have the solution immediately, we also need to be able to really feel what's happening in the web of life that we are participating in with our food and with our other consumer decisions as well. Focusing on food here only because that's the nature of this teaching, and that allowing ourselves to be like that character in the TV show who doesn't want to know about the inconsistencies in her boyfriend and then husband's story. Being like that character puts us in peril just as much as her willful ignorance is harmful to her. And part of this undercurrent of discomfort that we're feeling about food and our bodies and all of this stuff, part of that relates to the anxiety that people feel when they are choosing to not know. And I am reasonably sure that this is true because every time in my personal life that I have allowed myself to know more, that I have stopped resisting, there's a period of real discomfort and pain. And then on the other side, there is relief. And I have no doubt that I will keep doing this more and more times. There are a lot of ways that my lifestyle has a lot of room for improvement. But this is the first skill in the outer world when it comes to food. Okay, so the first skill in the inner world is feeling ourselves, and the second, the skill in the outer world before we worry about, nutrition and this and that, is is really knowing as much as we can know. Okay. All right. Oh, you guys have written so much in here, and I want to read. Okay. Um, Emily says, yes, there is a disconnect. We raise chickens for eggs, and people don't like to eat them because sometimes they are dirty. That's so crazy. Okay, yeah. Yeah, and the same thing happens for me. Like whenever I have wildcrafted, like sometimes I love to harvest mushrooms and weeds and stuff. And every time that I'll have like this amazing like oyster mushroom that I found that, oh, it's like treasure to me. Every time that I offer these mushrooms to people, um, even before they ask, "Are you sure it's not poisonous?" which is a legitimate question, the first thing they ask is, well, what if a dog peed on it? And I'm just thinking, what do you think has happened to the food that's coming from the farm? Don't you think that like birds poop on it and like think it's so funny? But yeah, we can laugh about it too. Okay. Kim said I had a similar situation with a friend. I have a photograph of a goat in a slaughterhouse. A friend asked me about the picture. I explained where the photograph was taken, and she became aggressive, telling me not to talk about it anymore. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Claire says we have the same reaction to our homegrown veggies. That's amazing. People like it's really amazing. We are so disconnected that like a little dirt from your own yard, people are afraid. And yet, really, like clearly, the dirt on the eggs in Emily's backyard and the dirt on the vegetables in Claire's backyard, this is not what's truly contaminating our food system. This is not what we really need to be afraid of. And it's amazing to feel kind of these the defenses, right, that we have internally and that we can see in other people. Um, and and I'm so thankful for these examples, the conversations that Kim and Claire and Marie have brought up here, and Emily, because it's a lot easier to see these patterns sometimes in other people than in ourselves, and yet we all do this. So I can absolutely remember times in my life when I think I was reading someone's website. It was talking about vegan food and vegan choices as being compassionate. And at the time, I was not vegan, and I remember getting angry and thinking, "How dare you say that only vegan food is compassionate? I'm compassionate, like what self-righteous person are you?" I was defending against wondering if maybe was I doing something that actually didn't live up to my values. And I really didn't know, but I didn't want to know. I didn't want to really investigate that question. So that's the piece about the web of life. And just knowing that um, none of us are disconnected, none of us live in isolation, none of us can eat or survive without a whole web of support. Um, and that most of the time we have no idea about what's happening to the people, the animals, the plants, the earth in that web. And until we know, at least as much as we can know, we won't really be able to make decisions that are aligned with our hearts. And you know, I really believe that these problems are complex and there isn't a single solution. Um, but we're never going to get to the solution if we don't allow ourselves to feel and to go there. Okay. So the last piece that I want to teach about today, and I think we can do it pretty quickly and then spend a couple of minutes on conversation and Q&A and kind of next steps if you guys would like and if you're able to stay. The last piece is about defining your own values of health and wellness and connectedness, compassion, who you want to be in the world and who you want to be for yourself. And the reason that it's important to do this, of course, is because there are so many interests that would like to shape your desires for you and would like to tell you what you should value. Um, and of course, most of the time, these are companies that have an interest in selling you something. And you know, the whole advertising industry, the whole marketing industry, all of this exists in order to create desire in you, to shape the desires that you have, to shape and influence your opinions, um, and ultimately to shape your values themselves and your system of how you orient toward the world. And it's not that this is inherently, you know, in advertising and marketing are inherently evil or bad. At the heart, they are modes of communication. But if you don't know for yourself what you value, it's going to be really easy to be drawn in and convinced by external messages. And those could be external messages from quote unquote experts. Um, they could even be external messages from healthcare professionals who are not exempt from bias. You know, believe me, we are not exempt from bias. Um, and if you don't check in first and think about what you value and make some decisions about what you value, um, it's like trying to it's like trying to navigate in a city that you've never been to without a GPS. So I want us to close by sharing and talking a little bit about what we do value when it comes to food and nourishment for ourselves, for our families, and for the rest of the web of life. So I'd love to know if you have any particular examples or experiences that you want to share that really speak to these values. Or if you just have a sense of what the things are that you value. For yourself or for others. By sharing the things that come up for you, you might help to also give people some words and some things that they can think about and play with themselves. I love that, Marie. I think connection is a big one. Mm. You could say more about that if you want to. I love that connection. We've used the word interdependence in our Nimble Heart class. Um, it's kind of the opposite or the antidote to that shutting off and pushing away. It seems to me. And while we're doing this, if you have a question or comment or something else that you would like to share or explore, feel free to press the Ask a Question button or to share it in the comments. We're going to probably wrap up in about 5 minutes. So this is the time if you want to get a question in. Emily says locally grown food, growing our own food and seeing the tremendous work that goes into it, knowing what labels mean, and connection to my loved ones through mealtime. Marie says, yes, I like to know the story behind things I buy, where they came from, who made it, for both food and anything else. It gives those things more value to me. Yeah, absolutely. Um, One of the things that I think two values that really come forward for me um, are pleasure and justice. And I think they're a really good pair. They're sort of a good yin and yang, and yet they really do mutually support one another. For me, valuing pleasure has really been one of the crucial ways that healing has been able to take place with my relationship with food and my body. And justice and valuing justice is something that has been present for me for as long as I can remember, from the time I was a little kid. And I think that realizing that I could express my values about justice through something as simple as my food choices, um, knowing that perfection is probably impossible. There might always be things that I can't know or that I buy that later I find out wish I didn't or I wouldn't do again. But that continuing to practice that in such a daily way, um, while valuing my own pleasure, it feels like those are really powerful guideposts for me. Um, I would love to hear any others if you have some. Some other possibilities would be ease, for example, really valuing ease or simplicity, valuing valuing abundance can be something really lovely with food. Valuing um, Valuing nutrition, absolutely, or healing if you are on a particular healing journey right now. Valuing connection, I think, is a beautiful one. Valuing there's a word that's trying to emerge about sort of this piece Emily brought forward about really appreciation, valuing appreciation and respect for everything that goes into the food, and having it be available. Gratitude might be one. Okay. All right. I see Paula is typing. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you, Paula, to share. And then I'm going to just say a little tiny bit about if we're able to continue with the series, what I think might be next. Of course, I would love to hear your feedback. And then I'll share the link again for donations and support, and we'll see where we land. Paula says, my relationship with food has changed over the years. I felt for so long that food is a necessary evil. Yeah, it's painful. I think connection and appreciation are two values I want to incorporate more. Yeah, those feel very true to my experience of you. Claire says, with only very limited knowledge on American politics, I've been watching the from across the way in the UK, the storm that's brewing around the upcoming elections. It's pretty scary. It's pretty scary over here. And I will confess that that is an area in which I am currently practicing this sort of like pushing away and not letting myself really fully feel the fear about what might be about to happen in my country. I want to take seriously that I need to adjust my relationship to that. But yeah, that is there is a major storm brewing. Who knows what's going to happen. Um, okay, yeah, that's one of those things that I think if I take it in fully, if I fully take in the Donald Trump situation specifically, I fear that it will make me ill, but I fear that it would be far more damaging to far more people if we don't fully take it in and address it. Okay, sorry for that little rant, guys. Um, okay, so here's what I think. Here's what I think might be next. So, of course, we need kind of continual support and conversation to keep stoking these inner skills and gently supporting one another as we open our awareness to the web of relationship. And I also think that part of the challenge, and we have to kind of weave back and forth, part of the challenge with food is very practical and it really lives in the outer world of objects and stuff and managing the flow of our budget and the flow of time and the flow of ingredients into the kitchen and there's something really earthy and practical about it, the most practical. So I think if we continue with this series, the next class is going to be about some of those practical skills. And as most of you know, I think my values and knowledge have led me to feel very passionate about plant-based eating and cooking and veganism. And so I'm going to share these skills from that perspective, which is not to say that I am um, that I am wanting to force everybody to be vegan, but that I'm wanting to share these kind of skills and practices that have made a big difference for me, and that whether you use that label or whether you identify that way or not, might be really supportive for you, regardless of the path that you are choosing. And I also happen to think that if everybody could practice some of the skills that I have been fortunate enough to learn, the idea of a plant-based diet would not seem anywhere near as daunting or scary or overwhelming um, or expensive or any of these things that people can fear. So if you are interested, I think that the next session will be something like meal planning and batch cooking and how to take a couple cups of almonds and turn them into coffee creamer and milk and amazing ricotta-like cheese that I just made today that I'm going to probably eat after this and after I stretch my hips. So we can talk about it. I'd love to hear your feedback. Um, and I will go ahead and place my email as well as the PayPal link to make a donation in support if you would like to. We are currently about, um, at least as of before the session, we are currently about half of the way to making our goal of raising $100 for a well-fed world. And if we do that, then I'm going to teach class 2 next week. So if not, I'm not saying I won't teach the class. I might just have to think about a different format or kind of readjust a little bit and see um, how the experiment turns out. So thank you all so much for being here and for your support. And let me get that link for you. I will put in here now. Um, and I do, there are a lot of ways to support that are not financial. So I appreciate all of the support that you give. And of course, the um, A Well-Fed World, let me give you their website as well, if you would like to donate directly to them. It's awfw.org, and I will post this in here as well. If you do donate directly to them, please let me know and send me a copy of your receipt so that I can include that in our tally. Okay. All right. Thank you all so much, everybody. And we'll talk soon. Let me know what you thought about this. Feel free to send me an email or a Facebook message, and we'll see. Maybe we'll be reconvening very soon.